We often come across tensions in life, all sorts of tensions, all categories. Some of them we can be quite aware of. Physical ones, for instance. It's quite easy to feel the body and the tensions in the body. But there are tensions way more subtle, emotional ones. Emotional ones that we can perceive because we feel them in the body, but emotions are still a bit gross or dense, but they are more subtle tensions, like tensions with beliefs. Beliefs can create tensions. The belief to be a limited body is enough to create a tension, to generate crystallization. The belief, for instance, the belief in having a reason, a meaning of to be, is enough to create a tension. But fundamentally, being doesn't need any reason to be. But we tend to be in tension towards something, towards a goal, generally. And most of the time it's for our own good. The principal tension, the main tension is for our own good, because it is taking us back to what we really want. But we tend to make some sort of detours along the way. We're not asking ourselves what's the most important. That is the reason why we are in Satsang. We take some time to ask the good questions. Well, most of the time there isn't any questions in Satsang. That is a good question, actually. What's left when there isn't any questions left? As long as there are questions, that means that there's a tension. As long as the idea that there is something to solve, that means that there is a tension. In India, there's a saying, the most primal question to ask yourself is, who am I? What is it that I am? Because when you have answered that, all of the questions just drop and fall down because they don't hold anymore. But the answer to this question, who am I, is never going to be a mental one. And actually, all the questions that you are looking for are never gonna be coming from the mind. All the sages keep telling, you are peace, love, everything. If you don't care about it, you just want to feel it. Consciousness doesn't speak, or at least not only through the mind, because you can see poetry or, through words. So consciousness can go through the mind, of course, but still, ultimate answers are not from something that the mind can apprehend. It's just lived, direct experience. And when the answer, the most accurate answer is always obvious, and it doesn't need any sort of comments. When everything is evident, obvious, there's nothing left to say. No need to comment. So as long as it's not obvious, we need to say things, we need to talk about it. That's the reason why we're here. So please do ask questions. If it's still not evident and obvious that everything is perfect and here already, if it's not obvious that you don't need anything else to be, and for peace, love, joy to be here, you don't need anything else. If and I'm embracing all sorts, all variants of being. Because what we are is always moving from different sorts of, or colors or shapes of peace, joy, love. So it changes, but it's not fluctuating.
Le soleil, on va dire, c'est comme c'était être, et puis le soleil a de multiples rayons.
Look at the sun. Imagine the sun as being, and every rays of the sun is, peace, joy. So it's every time it's a different ray, but still it's still being. It's still the sun illuminating.
En fait, c'est que des croyances qui nous empêchent de.
And it's only beliefs that prevent us from tasting that, seeing that.
Et le fait de se poser, par exemple, comme on l'a fait, bon là c'était dirigé, mais si on se pose
fact
simplement
of,
et qu'on fait rien,
just
c'est pour ça que la
sitting there not doing anything, the way, like meditation, reason why we do meditate a lot, but anyway. All the tensions, we can see them when we stay still. So first of all, it's physical tensions. Usually we have problems with the body at first, and then it comes to the mind that is sending a lot of thoughts, and then there's emotions coming up. We start crying, we don't know why, but that's the process, and it's absolutely normal. But there's other things after that, and then we reach some sort of empty state, and the mind starts getting bored, but boredom is also tension. It's this insatisfaction is a belief. We need to go through all that to see that all those I want, every kind of I want is a tension, which doesn't mean that we don't do anything else anymore. Doesn't mean that we don't play with the mind, but it's not coming from a I want, from a desire. Look at nature. There's nothing happening from any kind of mind in nature. There's no desire in nature. It's just a happening.
Ça vienne, que ce soit une image ou un mot ou une phrase, c'est bien le mental qui sert d'outil pour.
So it's just a tool. The mind is just a tool to eventually write a sentence or finalize something. That's it.
Quand ça vient avant, quand c'est pas le mental qui s'est fixé sur une image ou sur une phrase, mais que ça vient seul, le mental sert à ça en fait.
It does happen spontaneously, yes. Yes, it is a tool. It is a tool for the relative. It is a finite mind. It's limited. You need it to move, to conceptualize. That's its main purpose. It's a tool. But its main purpose is not to, tell yourself stories. That's not its goal. Well, if that was as easy as that, we would know it.
Okay.
I do believe that I came to this earth with the purpose of doing something. This is why I am here. And the more I become what I am, and it does take some time, it depends on the life path that is written for me. And it's just all good because I am evolving towards what I'm supposed to evolve to. So life is made of tension because I can see how I want things and I move towards things. And there's visualizations and actions from me to actually move on with my life. So yes, there are moments where I stay still. And I do use meditation. But there is still a path, there is a journey in between those meditation moments. You came here for a reason. Yeah, we agree on that. The books I was reading, lots of authors writes about how important to want something. So I want to walk towards realization. So I need this wanting, this desire to have it. And that's precisely the problem. You've just described the main belief in a human being, which is I need to do, to have, to be. That's the main mistake, which makes him believe that he's not awakened.
Qui dit tiens j'ai envie de ça, et puis qui nous conduit à faire ce que... Avant de faire quelque chose, c'est bien notre cerveau qui...
It is our mind who makes us want something and then we do something to have it. Well, it can go through the heart, which is spontaneous, so it's life just living itself, or it goes through the mind and it's conditioned by what you've learned all your life. Awakening in India is called moksha, which means liberation. And as long as you go through your mind, you are only reacting to programs and patterns that you've learned. So you're always going to be quite predictable. That's the reason why some people can predict what's going to happen to you, because if you go through the mind all the time, then we can see what's going to happen because we know how you're going to react. And if you get out of this program, it's just spontaneous. It's not conditioned by all those criteria that you've learned earlier on. So it's the heart talking in a way. Yes, indeed. Yes. Listening to the heart doesn't mean that I am still. To me, this listening to the heart, I try and let myself be guided by the heart. But it's quite hard to say that I don't have any sort of tensions because I'm looking forward this realization. I'm not saying that I have some sort of magic wand or anything, but I can see that there are many emotions or... That's the reason why I said that all those tensions are made for our own good. Those tensions are this current of life that is pushing you towards, to push you to come back to your true nature. But it's not going to happen without tension then. There is, let's say that there is a paradox then. What's absolutely certain though, with the tension from this mind tension, you will go through suffering. Indians say that there are two sorts of currents. One that is pushing you to find happiness in the world, so outside yourself, so or Vidyamaya, the current that brings you back home, like inside, because and there's no suffering anymore because it's not related to the world, and being is not related to the world, so there's no suffering there. Trying to explain. One thing is absolutely certain. Whatever you do to realize your true nature, it's not what you're going to do, it is what you're going to follow in your heart. Today there are thousands, like millions of paths, of different paths, so many ways that are offered now, and it's not relevant really. If there are joy, peace and love on this path, then you know that you're on the right path. But if you are feeling very sad doing some sort of path, then even if lots of people say to you, oh, that's the right lineage, if you feel sad, that's not the right path for you. And there is a saying in India, the reflection of the guru outside is not as important as the guru inside. What's inside your inner guru is what knows best for you. But if you act from the mind, you're never going to be able to get out of the mind if you keep listening to the mind. Which is why it is so precious to stay still and silent, because most of the time questions always come from silence. Never comes from the mind, it's not possible. The thoughts are never going to bring you to the true, to the real. They are wrong, false, because they are impermanent. And silence is permanent. So that's not going to bring you to what you are, your mind. But what's underneath that, from where those thoughts arise, that's the truth. That's the real. The non-intention. So intention. Silence is without any tension. Look at it. Is there any tension? And I'm not talking about the mind, like mental silence. I'm talking about emotional beliefs, the body silence, like, everything shuts down. There is a silence where there isn't even the belief, I am a person meditating right now, or dancing, or dancing can be a spiritual path too, or practice. Or someone who's walking, whatever. There is a silence pre-existing. So when you talk about thoughts, if I get it properly, so the thoughts have to stay on the side for myself to be able to express itself. So does this. So if we have a wish or anything like that, a desire, so the thought is going to create a link, a bridge between my soul and this world? No. Thoughts have a role in this world. It's never going to bring you to awakening. No, but what I mean is it some sort of vector? So thoughts is going to carry some desires or wishes and to give it to the soul, or No. The thoughts is quite simple. All there is are thoughts that are not even yours. For instance, you can't tell me what the next thought is going to be. You stay still at home on your couch and you're incapable of knowing what you're going to think, what the next one is going to be, what you're going to be thinking in 5 minutes. You don't control that, so this is really not yours. They are not yours. You don't own them. It has a role, though. Yes. So we use the thinking. So thoughts don't have any conscious. It's not conscious. Absolutely. It's just pointing. You are using thoughts to be able to understand what I'm saying right now. So during the whole satsang, it is as if consciousness keeps on going, through the thoughts, focusing on what we're saying and going back to what it is, and focusing again. And satsang means to gather around what is true. Sat means truth, and sangha means a gathering. So we do gather around and share about the truth. So that's what we do. We keep pointing towards. But thoughts will never be able to understand what you are really. That's not possible. And this is what we try and do. We do read lots and lots of books, and we become quite good at asking very subtle questions. So the answers get more and more subtle, but at some point when you've actually asked all the questions, all there is left is just to sit still in silence. I don't think that my questioning is going to stop, ever. Yeah, there is a stop. It does stop at some point. Well, there's thoughts and thoughts, and there are some that are quite sterile, and then in yogi's tradition, there's a saying that there are three qualities in this manifestation: one of excitement, one of lethargy, and one which is right in the middle. Same with all nature. It is the quality of excitement that wakes you up in the morning and gets you out of bed, and that's the lethargy quality of manifestation that gets you to fall asleep. And the equilibrium, which is the sattvic state, which means that we are, quite balanced. And so there's this saying that we should be cultivating those sattvic thoughts, neither thoughts that bring you to excitement nor lethargy. That's just a saying, but it's a tradition. But you can cultivate this quality of equilibrium. But there is a faster way, which is to realize that you are not the thinker. We said earlier that thinking thoughts appear on their own, so there's no one thinking them. There's no one to think the thoughts. Those are just objects. They just appear and disappear. But then who sends them? Those are the programs that you've learned from childhood. If you spend a whole week watching only horror movies, what kind of thoughts are you going to have the next week? Same if you just watch comedies. What kind of thoughts are you going to have afterwards? It's just that. Thought is just repeating. It's habits. It's all habits.
Alors après, quand tu vas loin dans les conditionnements, il y a programmation du subconscient.
And if you go further into the thinking process, there is the subconscious. So if you are in a progressive path, you're going to hear that you need to go and see in your childhood or even in past lives. So that's going to be very, very long. And there is just a quicker way, really quicker, faster. And we might depend on people who might not be able to give us the right answers, might not be able to answer us. All has its place, depends on what you want. Do you want to, enjoy yourself in thinking that you're someone who needs to progress or to make progress? We think that a spiritual path is a little me, a human, a thinker that is going to get better and better and going to up to the point of awakening. But no, that's not it.
Le meilleur ne vient pas en essayant de suivre des dogmes.
The best doesn't come from following dogmas, in trying to do. Everyone is trying to do their best. To progress is good, but what kind of results do we get from the mind when we try to, control or master the mind with the mind? You can try and visualize yourself being perfect all the time. You can do that, but it doesn't work. But if it goes through the heart, then this is working. It does work through the heart. I'm gonna, for instance, I'm gonna serve other people, and you realize that you have joy doing that, and you can see that it is opening, and it's and to see joy in others, then something way deeper is going to happen to you. It is a sort of ego, but there's also a connection to this unity, There is a realization without being aware of it that you are really one with the other. And from this joy, you're going to shift to human love, to true love. You realize that all is one and that it's not even everything that you see, because there's no such thing as things. It's just that everything that is in your field of consciousness is you. So you realize that all is you. All is you. So it is the next step then. No, there's no such thing as next, because all is you. There's nothing left. It's a symbolic to talk about the higher, the high kingdom or heavenly kingdom. But it's just a symbolic to point out that is permanent. Because on this earth, everything is fluctuating. The sky is maybe either there is clouds or not, is still the sky. It's a symbolic.
Le mental, en réalité, qu'il y ait des pensées ou qu'il n'y ait pas de pensée, la conscience est toujours la conscience.
It's like the mind, whether there is thoughts or not, consciousness is still consciousness.
En fait, le seul problème, c'est comment tu vas la diriger. Donc, juste, tu vas te tendre vers quelque chose.
The only question is, how are you going to direct it? Is how are you going to focus and believe in that thought? That's where it happens. But a thought, whether the way you think, that as you think, so you become. This is a saying in India. So the quality of your thinking is going to shape your life.
La réponse, c'est qu'il n'y a pas de pensée.
A belief is a tension. There are no such thing as thinking in this.
Quand on était justement dans cet amour, quand j'ai bien entendu ça. Si je me vis en écoutant ma conscience, en me laissant guider, en étant dans mon intuition, en me laissant porter, sans me poser de questions, donc sans tension. Et je fais l'expérience
So if I'm being very still and I feel this love, so I start attracting this love. But so as being an incarnate human, but that's a belief. This is that is a belief. You're not incarnate. You're not someone. But keep going. Keep going. On my very humble level, I can see that I'm being caught up in my emotions. So do I have should I lose my time and waste my time into getting why and where they're coming from? And I do go through those, moments where I can feel that love, but I get caught up in those emotions. So I'm going to feel more and more emotions. The more I get to feel this love, I'm going to get more and more those emotions too. It is magical, yes. Life is magical. It's going to disappear at some point, yes. That's not going to stay this way forever. You are in a state of welcoming right now. The only thing you have to do is just let it show up, let it... Do not put any kind of resistance on it. It just happens. Spontaneously. Why? The mechanic is quite simple. The little me to exist needs a story. So once upon a time there was... What's your name? So me, Maryse. So this story, when you start welcoming, you have to be now, because the real life is now. You've never really lived past or future. You've always lived now. So your experience is now. So there's no stories as soon that when you realize truly, like in your heart, that you are only now. When you realize that you are only now, Mary's story drops instantaneously. There's no goal to Maryse, no past, no future, and there's no Maryse left, because it's a story. There's no identity, indeed, because it's been learned. And it is very simple. It's huge what you're saying, but it is very simple as that. Yes, it is as simple as that. Yeah, you don't need to believe it. You just have to be it. It's not a belief. No, it's not. We're not talking about belief here. I'm sorry, but it is quite precious what you're saying right now. I can see this crossroad. Every time there's an emotion coming up, and it's coming from the past, to be able to tell myself, you being in that state, you can dissolve it. Look at how you put some time, you create a time when you talk. It's always now, it's not. Which is why, yes, that's the reason why I kept coming back to this incarnation idea. Because there is a yesterday, there is a now, there is a today, and there is a tomorrow. Are you absolutely certain? It is a relative way of seeing things. It is in the relative, yes. But the truth is, there's only now. It is very hard, difficult from where I'm coming to be able to live like that. But that's also a belief. This is how it's going to drop. See, all the beliefs that are belief, you still have the belief that a part of you doesn't want to drop all of that. It's still a belief that is here. Well, I'm a bit discouraged. No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. What you're saying is just related to this density there, but that doesn't exist. Discouragement doesn't exist in the self. For a notion of courage to exist, there is a notion of effort. You need a human being, someone to do an effort. Life or beingness doesn't have any effort to do, to be. Do you have any effort to do to exist when you're in deep sleep? It just lives on itself, right? There's no need for you, Maryse, to be here, but... Well, yes, it does happen on its own, but with this whole story, this whole baggage. But this baggage, you don't have to put it into it. You don't have to include it. You can emancipate yourself from it. Plants keep on growing, or, you know, flower, blossom, or it's just... So there's no better or worse. So if you think that it's not good, it's just wrong. It's just illusion. It's duality. It's an illusion. It doesn't exist. Wow. How long does it take us to achieve it?
Là, tu taquines.
You're teasing. You're being... teasing us. Well, thank you then. It's not easy to understand this concept. It's not a concept. Well, to me, it feels like a concept, yet still. So when we take something away from something, we have to put something else in its place? Because it's not the same thing then, in the end? It's present, but... So this present does have a consciousness. We're not talking about present, but presence. But so, is it... Are you talking... This presence, is it judging or... No, it doesn't. It's not judging. There's no judgment, no critics, no comparison. So it doesn't have all those sorts of things like judgment. No, it's not caught up in any sort of story or concept or evolution. It has no beginning and no end. If you try to get it with the mind, it's going to be hard, but if you go through the heart, very ancient texts say that it's unborn, it's uncreated. It doesn't go through a concept or process of creation. If those universes, all those universes, if they weren't existing, still consciousness would still be. There's no difference. It wouldn't be different. It's absolutely pure consciousness, or the self, or we can call it whatever we want, but this is your true nature. You can put some sort of filters, veils of opacity on it. Might be fears or worries or projections or identifications. But all of that are just veils. Behind it, all there is pure consciousness. It can't be any other way. All the thoughts, even all the thoughts, that goes through the mind. Behind this mind, there is this pure consciousness that is always here, even behind the mind being very busy. It impregnates everything. So even the thoughts, yes, it is pure consciousness. So it's that's what we are, and that's always going to be that. Yes, because there's no time, temporality. You can understand it quite easily. What you are, the very essence of things, can't be learned, can't have been learned at any point. If you see the chair, so you conceptualize, so it's white and it's in plastic, so lots of concepts. Or imagine that you are just born right now. Are you going to tell yourself it's white? No, because you've learned it. You can't say that it's a chair because you've learned. You've learned it. So same with plastic. So if you're really now, you're not going to conceptualize the chair. You're going to live the chair. It might sound strange, but you're going to live the chair. It does happen to pretty much everyone. You're going to watch a landscape, a beautiful landscape, and you kind of fall down into the heart and you just see this landscape and you don't need anything else. You don't need anything. It's just everything is perfect and you don't even need to know why you're feeling that. It's just there. Those glimpses of awakening. We get caught by the wish of trying to get this again, and we miss the point of being. It is always the mind that leads you astray. The mind is just a tool to become aware of matter. So why does it feel like it's so difficult? Well, it's been learnt. It's a collective teaching in this illusion direction. It's just it's consciousness playing. It could be differently. It could be another way. India calls them leelas, divine games. All of that. Those are your games. So we could change all that. Well, there's no individuality. There's no individuals. What makes an identity or an individual, this idea, is just a mind made of beliefs and thoughts, and it makes you believe that there is separation with others and me, but that's not true. There's only one consciousness. But what if I don't find those games funny?
Il trouve pas ça drôle, pourquoi? Parce qu'il passe par le mental.
Well, so people identify with what is being lived as their own. So that's why they go through the mind. That's why they don't like those games. Just come back to the heart. That's the authentic way of. That is authentic. The heart is authentic. It is quite magical to believe in this illusion. It is quite crazy to believe that we are separate.
Elle est capable de faire ce qu'elle
Elle a pas de
Yeah,
limite.
consciousness is absolutely infinite, so it can do whatever it wants. It can do whatever it wants. It can
Tout comme il y
do
a
anything.
certainement des peuples premiers
I'm pretty sure that there are some native people.
qui, depuis
I don't
la
have
naissance,
much knowledge on
ils
that,
sont
but
tous éveillés parce
I'm
parce
pretty
qu'ils
sure
ont été
that
éduqués de cette façon-là. On leur a jamais dit
I'm
de
pretty
faire
sure that
séparer.
some people, native people, are awakened ever since they were born because they've
C'est
never
pas
been
éduqué,
taught
c'est juste qu'on les a
otherwise,
laissés naturellement.
Ouais,
Ouais.
oui, ouais, mais
and
par-
they
par
haven't been
choix.
taught. They
C'est
just
toujours la
they just
conscience
have
qui fait ça.
been let as they are,
On peut croire qu'on est
and it's not a choice. It's just consciousness spontaneously doing
Mais
that.
c'est plus une croyance dans ce cas-là.
So we could
Si t'es
start
si tu
believing
vas
the
dans
contrary.
l'autre sens, c'est que
Well,
tu-
it's not a belief
tu
anymore
commences à-
then.
voilà,
If you
exactement.
start
Donc,
believing
c'est
that
l'éveil,
it
c'est
is
c'est la
awakening,
compréhension.
it is the comprehension that is here already.
Dans un premier temps, oui, on croit qu'il y a autre chose quand même. Après,
At first, we
tu vas te
believe that
rendre
there
compte que
is
cette
something
croyance-là,
else, yes.
va créer encore des tensions.
But you will see that this belief will create
Croire que le jour où tu
tensions.
seras éveillé, ce sera
Believe that one day I'll be awakened is a belief.
Mais il y en a beaucoup qui ont cette croyance. Hein.
And lots of people have this belief.
Je donne souvent cet exemple, mais je reçois beaucoup de monde sur
I
Paris.
do have a lot of people coming to my place in Paris.
Des gens qui méditent depuis de nombreuses années.
Some people have been meditating for years and years, and lots of comprehensions and inner realizations. And after an hour of talking, they tell me, I know I'm going to be awakened in this life. And I tell them no. But you've been telling me for an hour that I am the self. And yes, but it's not going to happen in the future. And yes, yes, you're right. I didn't see that. I was projecting myself in the future. Yes, it doesn't have. Yeah, it's pure illusion. And it is only by seeing this illusion that you can liberate yourself from it. Like, this is a higher level, or this is not for me, or he's a great master, I'm not. Every time you see it, you see this belief, you see that it's not true, you liberate yourself. There are two sorts of tensions. The tensions from the mind doesn't take you anywhere, but there is a tension sometimes from the heart, and it can make you do things that might appear to be crazy in the eyes of the world, but like I was during my ascetic phase, like meditating under hazel, or it was a tension of love. So it was a pure love, a real joy for me to do that. It wasn't a mental tension, yes, and yeah, it's an impulse from the heart. But you need to be able to see the difference between the two of them. Yes, and this is where discernment comes in, to learn and recognize. If you follow love, peace, and joy, you can't make any mistakes.
Vas-y, on la prend après, tu la gardes. Vas-y. Oui.
C'est bon? Je vais la dire après.
Ouais.
Alors, est-ce que, si je donne une image, ce que vous expliquez, la conscience, ne serait pas un peu ce que la religion...
So this consciousness, isn't it some sort of what people go through, like Adam and Eve before they come to Earth?
On entend bien ce que tu dis, oui.
We do hear what you're saying, yes, but isn't it this some sort of lost Eden? Isn't it what we are looking for, or that we have to find again? This garden, Eden, where everything is possible? We need to be careful with the idea of liberating ourselves, because ego can grasp that. Like the little me will say, I need to liberate myself from this or that. It's way simpler than that. It's just being without adding anything to being. just look at whatever you add, whatever layers you add onto, all those tensions, mental emotions that you add. Just welcome them and don't listen to the mind telling you that it's going to be better later on, because it has to be wrong, because all there is now, and you are now, and it's enough. As every time you try to manipulate things, try and take that away, or evaluate, invaluate. Quite often, we live a first experience of awakening, and afterwards we want to relive this. And it brings us to such a state of tension. It's such a tension that they can sometimes have some sort of deep depression. There's a surrendering. You understand that you'll never be able to achieve that with your own will. Most of the time, that's where and when it happens. Because it is our culture, I do talk about Jesus, but I'm not really Christian. But he kept on saying, may your will be and not mine. And he's not saying that as it and this. He just lets life happens, and whatever has to happen happens. It doesn't add any tension. Whatever needs to happen happens without any story, without any concept, no explanation, no meaning. It might sound as a duality because he says your will and not mine, but he also says that my Father and I are one, or that, or the truth is one. There is no division, no separation. I'd like to come back to your plastic chair. Sure. It is a good chair. So when we meditate, we often get into all the sensations in the body. So if we integrate the idea that it's not existing because it fluctuates, but if we transcend that and if we are awakened, we are still in a human body and there are still sensations. So I'm just wondering, how do you feel this chair? Because I feel my bottom being sitting down. It's a bit cold, blah, blah, blah. And I sometimes can, have sensations with my heart. I can feel presence in the room. Can you theoretically feel things that are not alive? Not alive. It's not possible. Even plastic is alive. Yes, that is my question. So.
Parce qu'en méditation, je pense certainement encore. Mais voilà, ouais, je voulais avoir votre point de vue sur ça.
Déjà, tu sais, la méditation, c'est quoi pour toi?
What is meditation for you? To you? It's training to being. The most basic definition is stopping all the fluctuations of the mind. So that means that we don't take notice of whatever appears on the mental screen.
Bien sûr, ça peut être aussi comme ça, parce qu'il peut y avoir avec les sensations, il peut y avoir aussi
sensations. Yes, sometimes there can be some sort of scenario, like concepts, or doesn't mean that because awakened people are sitting in a chair, doesn't mean that they don't perceive the chair. But there's no more differentiation, separation between them and the chair. all of that is one.
Non, pleine conscience, c'est encore une idée.
So it's mindfulness. No, it's just an idea. It's a concept.
Voilà.
It's a.
C'est justement de pas, comme par exemple quand on médite et qu'on écoute les sons. Par exemple,
For instance, when we meditate and we listen to sounds,
on ah tiens c'est une perdrix, oh tiens
we can sometimes put
on
labels
écoute
or.
seulement les oiseaux, il y a rien d'autre.
But when we
On
listen
écoute juste les sons et on entend plus
only to sounds without putting any sort of images
Voilà,
or
exactement. Pas d'idée non plus, rien.
no ideas, indeed, yes.
Et du coup moi c'est ce que je pensais être la pleine conscience, mais finalement non.
I thought that was about that for mindfulness.
C'est de
Non.
So,
analyser, de pas...
so that is the point of the heart. No, what you're describing in yoga is what you're describing here in yoga is called concentration, focusing. Meditation is there's no mind anymore and no more focusing. What's going to bring you to awakening is not to focus on, well, it is the first step. It is a good thing to focus on one thing with sensations, to learn how to take yourself away from all the thoughts. So that's concentration, focusing. And then next step is to realize what is seeing this, and it's consciousness that is turning its attention towards itself. Attention, where am I perceiving? It's not really aware, but it's. Which is why we can't talk about mindfulness. It's not empty or full or. It's conceptless. There's no concept about it. So.
Exactement. Ineffable, innommable, enfin voilà, tu peux pas mettre de nom.
You can't put words on it. Yes, yeah, it's unnameable, undescribable. As soon as you try and describe it and put a definition, it reduces it. And to come back to objects, it's absolutely pure consciousness too. There's absolutely no difference between your body, a live body, and this object. There's no difference. So we can't really imagine what how it feels because we can't put words onto it.
La vacuité, ça peut être encore des
void or vacuity.
C'est des états, c'est-à-dire ce sont encore
those are still states, experiences.
Voilà, ça retire rien.
It doesn't take away all the comprehensions that come from them when you experience vacuity or this void.
Il y a un mental avec des pensées, il y a un mental avec pas de pensée. Ça ne résout pas le problème. La vraie question, c'est qui voit le mental sans penser, c'est ça.
Whether you have a mind with thoughts or without any thoughts, that's not the point. What is perceiving this mind? And you realize that it's not a who, but it's because consciousness, you realize that consciousness is not personal. You realize that it's not your life, but it's life everywhere. And it is very, very simple. It's always the very same life everywhere. And there's no life that is better than one, another or.
Des fois, on peut se dire, il y a des gens aussi que je reçois me disent, ah oui, mais alors des gens.
Some people that I welcome home.
Dieu en eux, enfin parce qu'ils emploient le mot Dieu.
And they tell me, oh yeah, but dictators they have less consciousness or less God in them than in sages in sage. And no, that's not true. Every single particle has the same amount of consciousness everywhere. But the chair isn't conscious of being consciousness. Yeah, that's. But it doesn't create any sort of difference. That's just how it is.
Vas-y. Oui, toi.
Est-ce que vous pouvez revenir sur le moment en fait assez délicat où il peut y avoir donc une expérience spirituelle?
Can you come back to this particular point where you can have a spiritual experience and why those depression arise? Why is it here?
Quand on se rend compte qu'on n'est plus dans cet éveil, et qu'en même temps on a plus soif de cet éveil parce qu'on a déjà eu une réponse à nos questions, et alors là ça fait monter des émotions forcément, et ça crée vraiment un peu un no man's land en fait.
Ouais. Mais en fait, le degré de déprime ou de tristesse est proportionnel au degré de joie et d'attente.
The amount of depression, of the degree of depression, is connected to the degree of wish or desire to be awakened. So the more you want awakening, the more you're going to project yourself in the past or in the future, and the more the tension will get overwhelming.
Après avoir senti cet instant bien particulier, donc forcément, j'étais pendant des semaines, ça allait très très bien. Le problème, c'est que j'ai eu la sensation qu'il y a eu une descente en fait par la suite, ce qui me paraissait logique.
I could feel.
Mais la soif, en fait,
I went through that experience of awakening, and I could feel this coming down afterwards.
Elle n'était jamais revenue.
And
donc, en fait, je ne peux ni être dans la...
I can see that I neither want...
Ni dans une bonne appréhension de la personnalité, et en même temps, ni dans l'attente d'un éveil. Enfin, je sais pas si tu...
I'm neither waiting for awakening, nor do I want to get a better character, but I'm kind of in between.
C'est fluctuant, en fait.
Ouais.
Les périodes sont plus difficiles.
Pose-toi vraiment la question, qu'est-ce que
Ask
tu veux
yourself,
vraiment?
what do you really want?
Alors, c'est quoi la réponse?
Avec le cœur.
With the heart. I think that I don't want... Well, I'm not sure that I really want to let go of all those identifications. Yeah, that's often what happens. We don't dare. It's quite uncomfortable because we are, very on the very edge of the cliff. You're attached. Yes, you want to jump, but you're attached.
Oui, c'est ça.
This experience was enough, I was filled with it. And it feels like I don't want to establish myself now. It felt like it was enough. Yeah, no, there's no problem about that. It can be lived like that. It is different in every people. I know someone who lived an opening, a realization at 5, when he was 5 years old, and made the deliberate choice to forget or close down this, to develop an individuality, and then it reopened.
C'est pas obligé d'y croire. Aucun éveillé joue le jeu en y croyant.
You don't have to believe in this story and this game, this lila, you don't have to believe it to play it.
Oui, il n'y a pas de problème. Il n'y a pas de raison d'être à être.
There's no reason.
Tu peux être sans raison d'être.
Being doesn't have any reason to be. Life doesn't have to have a reason to be lived.
Oui, c'est ça. C'est le petit moi qui pense qu'il y a un sens, etc.
It's just the little me that thinks that you need a sense, a meaning.
Qui va te satisfaire, mais la satisfaction est forcément maintenant.
And it's this idea that satisfaction will come later on, but everything is already here. So look at what ideas make you believe. All the ideas that you have that might make you think that you're lacking something. And you'll see that everything is now, all is now. So all the tensions toward something else than now those are creating unsatisfaction. Can we?
Du coup, évoquer la question de là
Can we talk about the soul? Listening to you, it feels like Buddhist philosophy is wrong. Because if I understood enough the Buddhist philosophy, they talk about reincarnation and there is a soul. No, it is true on a relative level.
C'est vrai sur le plan relatif.
On the relative level, it is true. There are principles. Like, you grab an apple, you release it, it drops. So there's a cause and an effect. So it is true. Consciousness is free from karma. So it is still a belief that is linked to a philosophical lineage. But what we're talking here is something else entirely. To consciousness, there is no cause or no effect. It's not possible. From the very moment you're in consciousness, there's only now, and for cause and effect to appear, for karma to appear, you need time. But to consciousness, it's the very same here, everywhere. There's not even distance, it's distanceless. And pure consciousness is not subjected to any sort of karmical movement. Karma can only exist as long as you don't know what you really are. If you are absolutely conscious of what you are, it feels like it is. Like karma has never been existing, has never existed. It is consumed instantly. Yeah, I can see that how karma, creates meaning in life. There's this sense of justice, or with this idea of if I act badly, then it's going to come back to me. Yes, me, the person, me, the little me. Yeah, it drops.
Pour qu'il y ait un karma, il faut qu'il y ait rapport. Il faut qu'il y ait du entre.
For karma to exist, you need interaction. You need the in between, and it doesn't exist. To consciousness, it doesn't exist. Take an apple. You drop it, you release it. It's gonna reach the ground, right? This is cause and effect. This is karma. Okay. Now, from the standpoint of the viewpoint of the absolute. So the apple is first here, then if you're in between, you ask from the consciousness, where are you? Here, here, here. It's here, everywhere. There's no cause and effect. There's just here. So someone who's acting like evil, having evil actions, being very bad or being a dictator, is actually consciousness ignoring itself. It's actually a game from consciousness. It's a play. It's a game. Yes, consciousness is always playing through endless experiences just like that, without any meaning, any sense, any goal. Just like that. Yes. But just like that is not really it. It's just ease. There's no sense, there's no meaning behind it. It's just becoming aware of matter.
Cette expérience, cette manifestation de la matière avec l'esprit, avec le soi. Elle fait fusionner le tout. Donc elle conscientise. Ça devient plus qu'un, ça l'est déjà. Sauf que c'est pas conscient.
She just plays the game of becoming aware of matter being consciousness. It's a fusion, but which isn't really true because it is already one. So that's the reason you can play the game of being a dictator or a saint, like, you know, the best of the worst. It doesn't exist really, but you can experiment anything. But what's really hard to believe is there's no meaning. But yes, that's a very human way of seeing things. It's to structure life. The ego, the mind makes you believe that you need a meaning and a direction in life. And, you know, so you don't need direction because you're everywhere. So why would you need a direction? You just have to be.
Quand on est dans l'expérience et l'illusion, la meilleure chose à faire, c'est pas un devoir bien sûr, mais c'est de l'aimer en fait, d'aimer cette illusion, d'aimer.
So the only thing that we have to do is to love this illusion. It is a happening. It's. It is. It's not you, the person who is loving. It is happening on its own. In the Yoga Sutras, you can read something like the very purpose, the very only purpose or point is to be seen.
Ouais, le seul but, entre guillemets, mais c'est pas but. Ils disent pas but, ils disent pas d'objectif. Mais il y a un simplement le seul, juste. Bouddha dit la même chose aussi.
The Buddha says the same thing.
Voir, rien que voir, entendre.
See, just seeing. Tasting, only seeing. Listening, only listening.
Il n'y a pas d'autre but. La conscience aime juste.
Consciousness just loves experimenting itself, just like that. It's a joy, absolute joy when you are consciousness to make lots of different experiments. It's just love.
Oui, bien sûr.
Le personnage de Jean-Jacques Rousseau, il décrivait la conscience à l'état pur. Il était dans sa barque, face au soleil.
I remember Jean-Jacques Rousseau talking about consciousness, you know, being on a little boat on a lake. Just there. Yes, and those kind of experience, he was just here. Yep. Lots of people have understood, lots of poets, writers, lots of them have understood. So, physical pain, is it also a game from consciousness? I work in a hospital, so I do see a lot of people in pain all day long.
C'est la conscience qui, à un moment donné, expérimente ça.
It's consciousness, yes, it is consciousness experimenting itself through this experience. But on a daily basis, someone going through that, so we can say that it's going to be very hard, but still it's still some sort of limitation.
Et en même temps, quand la conscience vit ça,
when consciousness lives that in the manifestation, it can also modify.
Donc elle peut aussi rendre entre guillemets la guérison possible.
It can also, you know, healing happen.
Voilà, dans une même existence, il peut y avoir souffrance et puis.
You can have suffering and ultimate joy in the same life, and healing. And so it is possible for those people who are ill. They can also go through the healing process. There's no fatality. It's always consciousness making experimentation. I try to be as humble as possible in front of that. And as long as we haven't been living that, yes, but if you are living through your heart, by the phenomenon of compassion, you'll be able, and because of your own presence of what you are, you can actually feel what they're going through. You can know. and all those idea of fraternity or compassion and going through the heart, not going through the mind. You can't, that's not possible. But if you go through the heart, yes. So if we were to cut one of your arms right now, you would welcome it. Well, it doesn't change anything to consciousness. It doesn't change anything to consciousness. I'm not there yet. Well, there's no such thing as being there yet. I know, I've heard myself say it, but this physical pain so intense, I can't imagine, I can't see it. I've been through moments in life where, when I was a child, I was quite detached from pain and suffering. I was pretty much dying when I was a kid, and I resisted to everything because I was quite conscious already. I was so detached from the suffering. You know, I could actually put my hands on a you know, on the stove, like. And I would even put myself through those experiences, and I couldn't feel the pain because I was so detached. So we can be detached from pain and experiment it in a different way. If you are fully detached, if you are fully, like, really no identification, like, and you are in pure consciousness, well, then suffering, you apprehend it quite differently. There's no more focalization on it. When there is a focalization that is happening on something that is keep on repeating, it appears like it is taking all the space, all the room, and it feels like you're going only through that. So you're only in the suffering, you're only in that pain, and you don't even have this inner voice, you know, that tells you you can get out of it. But it also happens that sometimes to people it happens spontaneously, that, you know, there's some sort of being fed up, or there's a healing that happens. It does happen all around the world. So that's why I was saying that there's no fatality. I could see during some retreat, meditation retreat, that my body was burning, and the more I was resisting, the harder it was. But I could also see that when it was relaxing, and I wasn't doing it on purpose, but it was just a happening, I could feel it was easier. Yeah, I think we have to stay humble.
Il y a aussi en fait l'expérience de lorsqu'on est par exemple là, de sentir les douleurs et tout ça, et lorsqu'on est en temps de méditation, de plus avoir ces douleurs. Et lorsque le temps de méditation s'arrête, hop, toutes les douleurs.
I've noticed that sometimes during meditation you can have, you know, pains before, or suffering before you start meditating. It disappears during meditation and then it comes back afterwards. And I don't know how to. You will have to meditate all the time. Yeah, only kidding. That'd be the ideal.
Le problème, c'est jamais l'information.
Problem is never the information that is emerging. The problem is.
C'est jamais la situation de problème, c'est toujours la relation.
The situation is never the problem, it's always the reaction to the situation. Always. Whatever you live in life, it's whatever you live in life, the problem doesn't come from what you're living, but from the relation to what you're living. If there was a practice to have, you know.
Un peu de pratique, justement, un peu de temps, en général. Ou ça peut se faire maintenant, si tu veux, d'accueillir complètement ça.
It'd be to welcome that entirely, to see that there is a mechanic, there is a pattern to welcoming. The first thing is to stop resisting and to say to this suffering, this pain, well, it's okay, you're here. I don't want to harm you. Then to notice what's the distance between this consciousness that is perceiving this and this suffering, and then is to see that consciousness is not affected by the pain that is perceived. And that's the path to awakening, enlightenment. Whatever is perceived always fluctuates. Whatever the spiritual experience is, it always fluctuates. But what perceives, whatever appears, never fluctuates. And that's the very point, the very goal of suffering, is to actually do a U-turn and realize what it is that is not impacted. Can we call it? We can call it peace, yes? Presence, peace. There is something weird. I feel like the ego and the mind is resisting this life that is flowing in the body. And it creates illness because of those resistance, because we are separating ourselves from what we are, and because of this mind-ego. So my question is, why do a tree fall ill? There's no ego in a tree. Or it's just an experimentation from consciousness through the tree. Most of the time we can't change a situation in life, but we can change the relationship to this situation. That we can act on. That's why meditation is interesting. You're alone with yourself. You're told to stay still and stay in silence. What is your relationship to silence? That's interesting. Looks like silence has never done anything to you, but not many people can stay still without doing anything. And I know a sage in India, in Himalayas, and his ashram, you can do whatever you want, play, do whatever you want. But every day he would say, today, try and stay in your room not doing anything. And 2 seconds after, he would burst into laughing, saying, you're not capable of that, you can't do it. Because unsatisfaction is too strong. You need to see what is the obstacle to this tranquility of being, this simplicity of being. And then if there is a physical suffering, it's just seen and it's welcome. You just let life live itself. Lots of sages have a lot of illnesses. Often they have, very, very big illnesses, like quite serious. But all of them have a very big smile on their faces. And how about there is a message in that? It is a way of, making a pause, being ill, yes? Might be a way of nature to, push yourself to internalize yourself or interiorize yourself to prepare yourself to death. Like karma. There's no point in karma, right? No, yeah. So if someone is suffering, someone says, might be karma, I need to go through that suffering, it might help accepting. I went through an accident and it did help me a lot to accept, to move with it. If it happened to me, then I might have done something in a past life, so I need to accept it. I need to move on. You're welcomed. That's the reason why it went well. You don't have to believe in karma to be able to welcome things and embrace things. I'm trying to understand why things happen, and well, ask yourself if there is a world. This manifested world is only 1% of this illusion. Even science says that 99% of this is emptiness. If something happens to me, I feel like there's no, it's not random. Yeah, but it's just part of the story. It's not going to liberate yourself from suffering. If something happens to me, there's no stories, there's no world. I agree. It's not the end point of it, but it is still a reality. You were talking about the dictator. So, a dictator, is there any sorts of consequences to his actions in a next life? To me, it's impossible for someone to create an action without a result. It's not so cause and an effect. But you said it yourself. To have a creation, for creation to be, you need to have the sense of a being, of someone being creating something. So, if there isn't this belief in someone that is creating anything, then there's no problem with whatever appears. Look at, there's a thought arises. If you believe it to be true, and if it tells you you're worth this, that, and you're going to act accordingly. But if you know that you're not the owner of this thought, that's it's as soon as you feel like you own this action or this thought, this is when karma appears. But if you are living harmoniously with life because you realize that you are life, then everything is happening perfectly. And you don't have to fight in life anymore, because everything is happening perfectly and spontaneously. We went to the market this morning. I'd love to have flowers in the room tonight. And I didn't like them in the market, and see, there are roses here tonight. And as soon as you realize that you are life, all the impulses that come from the heart, all is going to happen spontaneously and perfectly. I had no doubt that I never doubted that there would be enough space or room for the right amount of people that would come. I wasn't worried. There's an absolute confidence. So our behavior is changed when we are in this comprehension. Well, yes and no. Well, there is a phase where you feel like you have, those dangling arms, because there's no more becoming, no personal goal. It did happen to me anyway, and other people went through that too. what am I gonna, and thinking, what am I gonna do? Because there's nothing to do, to be. So there is a time like that, a moment. And after a while, you just let yourself being carried by the current of life, and it's way easier. You just let things happen. Doesn't mean you don't do anything. You're inactive, but it's without the idea of someone who's doing someone. And the point is not the result. It's just the goal is now, and it's already now. So it's only the current that makes you think, okay, there's a satsang tonight, and maybe tomorrow the current will stop, and we'll stop talking tomorrow, and there's no problem with that. There's no identification to a me, a spiritual me that should be, that is sharing about this. So someone who's awakened, is he confronted to, might have an image. Are you, if someone cut the roads on in a car, or are you gonna get angry? Or I did something like that happened to me actually. Someone did that, cut the road in front of me, and it's just cut the road and then just slowed down, and I saw this thought arising, come on, move your car, and I burst into laughing. I just saw this reaction, this intention, and there's less and less of that. And there's no judgment.
Alors, si jamais il y avait ce serait pas une réaction, ce serait une action.
If I was to react, that wouldn't be a reaction, that would just be an action. So, because, there's no time, so 1 second before is not existing anymore because it's only now, so it's not a reaction, it's just action. So from the heart, but it could happen, it could happen. But inside, it keeps on laughing. It's very amused inside. The difference is instantaneously, after this burst, there's no traces. Yeah, there's no memories. Yeah, nothing is grasping anything. So the anger is instantaneous, but it's not really anger. It might appear as anger, but it's not. Yeah. How do we have a professional life, then how do we lead a professional life? How do you carry on your role? Well, you just play it without believing it. It happens. You can do anything. You can change your role.
Non, tu peux jouer tous les rôles que tu souhaites.
You can play all the roles that you want without, the judgment of others or opinions. That is a very big trap from the ego, to live depending on what others think of you. Well, I do have kids, for instance. There is a need for money or care, and I feel like if I drop everything, I won't be able to assume this role, to be there. I don't know how to. I feel trapped. What's the worst that would happen? I feel like I would be abandoning them. I wouldn't be. I'm afraid of not being able to be a good mother. It's very, very blur for me. It's just the mind that makes you believe that. Yeah, but it's very present. Yeah, it appears to be present. Because even having kids doesn't prevent you from being and being who you are. You can be with kids, even with what you call responsibilities, taking care of them, being present, doesn't prevent that. No. My mom took care of me, and she was absolutely realized. Doesn't prevent anything. She gave me love, all that I needed. It doesn't change anything. Well, how about well, to go from one place to another, there is a transition. You need a transition. So, well, then, if there is that aspiration, then just do it. There's nothing is forbidden. But if you let the mind get in the way, you will get fears if you put it aside and just act through the heart, from the heart. There's no reason to be scared or afraid, and you can change your job and you can welcome what you are right now, which is having kids. Nothing prevents you from anything. It's really a virtual reality in a way. Yeah, it is your own game. Being consciousness, you are just playing. So if I'm tired or bored, I can just change the game. Yes. So if I let go of my job and I have to take care of my family, there is this saying that you will be given what you need to go through this transition. Yes, because you are in this confidence, in this trust. Yeah, because you are trusting fully, this is going to happen. It does go beyond comprehension in our society to yes, this is why I keep saying that everything is possible. For instance, once I didn't have enough money I have a roommate and I didn't have the money to pay the rent. And a friend of mine came to my place. And she told me, I sold the house, I bought a car, we bought tickets, for holidays. And there is 50K left, and I've decided to give it to friends, and you're on the list. And I was quite teasing, and I asked, how did it came to you? And she told me, well, it just came to me one morning. And so I ended up with 10 rents in advance, so pure abundance. So this is pure confidence, trust. There is a text saying, what are the birds worrying about on how they're going to be able to eat? They don't think about it. Just if you are in absolute trust and confidence and what needs to happen for you, it will happen. So just trust life. It's abundance. Yeah? And it isn't about, some people, are worth it or unless you have fears. Yes, absolutely. Abundance, life and abundance are synonymous. But, well, at some point there's no more buts. Well, we can see people not being very conscious and yet being quite wealthy, and yet we can also see people being in the heart all the time and their life seems to be quite hard. So where is it coming from? It's always consciousness. And their life is not that difficult because they're very detached. Those people, this example they're giving, Whether they have money or not, it doesn't. It's the same. Nothing is changing. They are in pure consciousness of being. Doesn't change anything being wealthy, having money or not. They're not in some sort of misery if they don't have any money. It's not misery. We have to deprogram ourselves. So you were saying that things happen when we are trustful. So if things don't happen, is it because our goal or this impulse is not the right one? Is it life that knows better than us, or what do we need to do in those cases? What you really want is not a state of doing or having, it's a state of being. So life doesn't care if you go through phases of, misery, or what you want is a state of joy, or is to it's actually more than joy, it's just being what you are. So everything is part of the process. There are all sorts of experiences that happen, and we could maybe think that doesn't matter what happens in the play, on the screen, the movie screen. What is important is what is revealing through this movie to the spectator. You live experiences in life, and what could be dramatic for someone else would be bringing you back to what you are, to realize the self. It's really going to contribute, and the fastest way actually is going to contribute to taking you back to what you are. It can take any kind of forms, yeah. So we need to welcome everything, even whatever might feel not good or not cool. Yes, absolutely, no exception.
Est-ce que le spectateur qui a intuition, expérience, d'éveil, à un moment...
So is the spectator who's going through an experience of awakening, does he tell himself, I accept to live, I accept to die, or...
Tu parles du spectateur? C'est pas le spectateur.
I'm talking about the spectator or the perceiver of the ego. It's not the spectator that is revealing itself, it's consciousness. The spectator can't tell itself that it's going to die. So the ego, so on this path to awakening, I accept, does the ego tells himself, I accept to die? No, the ego can't tell itself that, not the ego. That is not the ego, but that is the real question. So being is both the spectator and the director. Yes, consciousness is absolutely everything.
Et l'observateur pour certains.
An observer to some. That's the reason why those flowers arrive, this bouquet arrive. That's not because the little me wanted, because I wanted flowers, that the universe gave it to me. But that's because me, this life and these roses, is the same consciousness. So at the same time, it makes this desire of arise in me, and then also make it appear. If you want awakening, it's already there. Otherwise, you wouldn't want it. That's because it's already here that you want it. So you've done most of it already.
Vous jouez un jeu ou vous suivez le courant alors, de la vie par rapport à ce qu'on disait tout à l'heure?
Les deux. On joue le jeu de...
So are you playing a game or are you following the current? Both?
Ouais, ça se fait au
C'est
fur et à
ça.
mesure.
It happens, yeah.
Sans but.
Voilà, c'est ça.
Without
Sans
any goal,
scénario, sans
no
préparation.
scenarios, no preparation.
Mais ça veut dire aussi que du coup, j'ai pas changé de rôle.
So it also means I don't have to change in my role.
Oui, tu peux.
M'emmener vers autre chose, ça va venir à moi.
Oui, en ayant pleine
Ça veut dire
confiance.
presque ne rien faire.
So does that mean that we don't have to do anything?
Le petit moi, oui.
As a little me? Yeah.
Le petit moi n'a rien à faire.
The little me has nothing to do.
Être n'a rien à faire. C'est le petit
Being
moi
doesn't
qui a
have
quelque chose à faire.
to do anything. It's only the ego, the little me, that thinks that he has to do something.
Tu fais rien, tu maintiens même pas ton corps en vie, c'est pas toi qui le fais ça.
You're not even, maintaining your body alive. It's just life happening.
Tu fais même pas un battement de cœur.
You don't, make your heart beat, even just one heartbeat. You don't make it happen as the little me.
Oui, et si ton cœur te le dit. Mais déjà, le
So
fait
we
que
can do
l'impulsion est
things
venue
just
de changer de
spontaneously.
rôle, est-ce que tu l'as choisi?
But the very fact that you wanted to, this wish of changing role,
Non, tu l'as pas choisi.
did you choose to have that
C'est le
desire? No, you
petit moi
didn't actually. You didn't choose
Tu l'as
it.
pas choisi. C'est un élan de la vie qui se
It's
manifeste.
only
C'est
just
comme
an impulse from
le
life.
fait de vouloir réaliser le soi, tu le choisis
Same
pas.
as wanting to realize the self. It's not you. You haven't chosen it. It's just a current of life that is taking you back to what you are. So there are impulses that arise, but you're not choosing it.
T'as pas choisi de venir ici, mais
You haven't chosen to come here, even if you think that you
t'as pas
have.
choisi de t'intéresser
If
à
you
la
think you
spiritualité.
chose it,
Ça t'est tombé dessus.
you didn't choose to
Tout te tombe dessus.
get an interest in spirituality. Everything falls into you in your life, really.
Ouais, ça surgit quoi.
It just emanates.
C'est spontané.
It's spontaneous. It doesn't fall on you, but it's spontaneous. And do you know why it is spontaneous? Because you're right. Yeah, you already are it now. Good girl. You'll get a gift.
Je l'ai pas là. Faut que t'attendes un peu.
Ok. Deux dernières questions.
Oui.
On a bien débordé.
Oui.
Quand dans le travail, on nous demande de faire des projets à 5 ans, machin, comment on s'en sort?
Des projets à 5 ans.
How do you deal with having perspectives up to 5 years, 10 years in your job? You have to
Tu peux faire
project.
le projet sur 5 ans
Doesn't matter.
sans penser
You can
au
project.
devenir du projet ou
You can
au
project
sein.
in 5
Tu
years.
fais l'action,
You
t'inquiète
can
pas.
project and then just do the action now,
Tu fais ce que
without
tu dis.
projecting and
Pas pareil.
keeping up with it. Not through the mind. Not through the mind.
Oui, c'est pas possible quoi.
Donc en fait, je fais un film
So I'm directing a movie
tout en disant que je sais pas ce qu'il va devenir.
while telling myself I don't know where it's going to go.
Ça fait partie du
Sages in
karma
India,
yoga,
in karma yoga,
l'union dans l'action.
it's union in
Savoir rester
action.
pour maintenant et
It's
être dans l'action.
to taste
karma
being
yoga, il y a
in
des
action,
sages qui
being
s'amusent
now
à
in
faire
action. So
des
sages
trucs,
make
construire
yogis
des trucs,
do,
par exemple.
create
Et après,
things,
il arrive
construct
avec
things,
un
and then
truc, un
the
autre,
sage
il casse
arrive
tout,
and
il vous refait, il casse
and
tout, il vous
he
refait.
breaks it
En
down
fait,
and
il fait
tell them
exprès.
keep
C'est
on
juste
doing it,
pour arrêter
do it
avec
again,
du devenir.
just to make them understand to let go of this idea of becoming, of a future, and just to focus on the joy of doing now.
Dans la vie et que tu peux
You can be
il y a de la joie, il y a de la
carried by
la
this
conscience,
current in
mais
life,
même
and
de
there is a joy.
très très simple. Respirer,
The very,
marcher,
very simple actions
même
like
rien
breathing
faire du tout,
or
juste
walking
voir comme ça,
or
puis savoir
just
que
being
t'es là.
staying still
C'est suffisant.
and being conscious of being is
Donc, après,
enough
tu peux faire des actions qui
to
ont l'air
consciousness and to
complexes,
life.
voilà, mais ça-
And you can after do more complex actions if you want,
c'est
but
juste, voilà, peu importe ce que tu fais, il y a
whatever you do,
il y a de la joie dans le faire déjà.
there is a joy in this action
Mais
already.
par contre, s'il y a une tension vers le
But
devenir,
if
il y a
there
un
is a
but,
tension towards a becoming or a future, then you leave now, you get out of now, and there's a problem there. If you feel like happiness is going to come later,
ça te passe à côté parce que
then logically
le bonheur, ça
it's
vient
gonna
tout de suite.
you're gonna miss it because happiness is
Tu peux
now.
faire et prendre du plaisir à faire sans
You can
chercher.
do having pleasure in doing now without projecting in 5 years or even more.
Il y a un sage qui s'appelle, il ne doit plus être dans son corps maintenant, Stéphane Jourdain il s'appelait.
There is a sage, a French sage master, Stéphane Jourdain, who was coming from quite a wealthy family, and his joy was to actually cleaning the house. It was the very joy of doing. Being wealthy as he was, he must have had a very big, manor to to clean. So it must have been a real joy for him. I'd like to come back to the soul and consciousness. I've heard that more and more people, like doctors, have had NDE, near-death experiences, and they've witnessed and testified that they've seen themselves going out of their body, and so they were testifying that yes, the soul exists, and so you say? In the absolute, yes and no. In the absolute, all is consciousness, but the soul is what helps you. But what you talk about is not the soul. The soul, you will never be able to see it, identify it. What you talk about is the weight of the astral projection, of the astral body. And we know now that we lose a certain amount of grams, a certain 21, 27, 32, because the astral body is made of a certain kind of energy with a certain weight. So that's what you call soul.
C'est pas une enveloppe. En fait, ce que vous appelez les corps subtils.
What you call subtle bodies, the way they are represented.
On vous présente le corps physique et à l'intérieur, on vous met le corps le plus subtil. C'est comme un point, puis un autre, puis un autre, puis un autre. D'accord.
So it is represented as being, like a point or a speck, and bigger and bigger and bigger.
En fait, c'est ce qu'on appelle le champ aurique ou la rémanence, en fait.
But what you talk about, what we see outside, is more of an auricle field. But the astral body is more like the dream body. This field, or this auric field, is kind of linked to this astral body, this astral plan is a plan of comprehension, but it is a bit complex.
Oui, à l'extérieur, c'est tout ce qui va être champ de rémanence, c'est-à-dire ce que les gens appellent les auras.
What you see outside the body is what we call the remnants. It's a continuity of subtle body.
Ce qui sortirait, c'est le...
So what comes out, it comes from, yes, from... So in the way you see things, what would be the soul? Well, according to masters, some masters, it's some sort of intermediary. It's very basic, but it helps to link its intermediary between the absolute and the manifestation. It's very basic. We can't quantify it.
En fait, l'essence d'âme telle qu'elle est, elle n'a pas de forme.
This soul, as it is, soul doesn't have a form, a shape. It's not a subtle body. Usually, most of the time, the subtle bodies, looks like the body, but the soul has no shape, no form. It's formless. It doesn't need to see itself. It's not a part of a vision or anything. It is what it is. But it is a part of pure consciousness. It is a part of. So it is linked to the fact that we are in a body. It links the two, kind of. It's kind of a connectic.
Et c'est une partie de la pure conscience.
it is a part of absolute consciousness.
Mais un petit conseil juste comme ça, t'en fais ce que tu veux.
But just
Essaie de
quick
pas trop
advice.
te préoccuper de tout ça, ça changera rien à...
Don't focus on that too much. It's not gonna. That's not what's gonna help you.
C'est pas la pure cogitation entière du mental et du jeu, blablabla. C'est juste parce que, comme beaucoup de gens,
No, I'm just interested in the fact that a lot of people have ideas about that.
j'essaye de, justement, du coup ça m'interpelle, j'avais une envie de me préparer au fait qu'ils partiront peut-être dans peu ou quoi, donc forcément j'ai envie de comprendre mieux ce qui va se passer quand ils vont...
It's just that I want to prepare myself for the next step. And I want to help people around me too. That was precisely my motivation to get out of the body, is to be able to talk to my grandmother afterwards. So I know what you talk about, I know what you mean. Yep, go ahead and keep going. There's no problem, yeah, sure.
Ça, tu pourras accompagner.
Well, you'll be able to help your friend. Okay, one last question. You were, talking about this anger in your car, and you didn't, put any intention on it, and then it just left. No, it's not that I didn't give it any attention. It's actually that I've given it all my attention, because everything is important to consciousness, because nothing is rejected to consciousness, and everything is loved. Everything is loved by consciousness. So it doesn't work if you don't, if you try not to give any attention to anything. No, it's actually the contrary. It's the very, very little, every single, unsatisfaction in the body is being felt entirely. So if there's something that makes you cry, so you give it your attention, it's gonna... Is it long? I actually don't ask myself those questions. From compared to what you were, from what you were or who you were before, compared to who I was, who was I? Yeah, that's the... Are there emotions? Well, it is part of life. Like, there are thoughts, and so it's just that it's not me. Same way it's not you. So when you're crying, it's not you. It's the body which is crying. It's not me. It's pure detachment. But it's the same for you. The real question is, it's always the same. It's who sees. And you'll realize that all of that are objects, but you are the consciousness that is seeing those objects. Whatever, if it is, whether it is anger or sadness, you don't, give it importance or... It's the same with, fizzy water. You see the bubbles coming up to the surface. Those are objects. And as soon as it comes up, to the surface, it pops. Same. It's just no importance in that. It's just ephemeral. But you just said that you gave it all your attention right before. Yes. It might sound paradoxical sometimes. Even when we say to give my full attention or all importance, it also means that we are fully detached. I know it's... I give it all its importance and think at the same time that it is me. It's just consciousness that is marveled by it, and it's just looking at it from all the angles. And by the way, that's the only way to liberate yourself. You can't go through any other way, just by welcoming, unconditional welcoming to whatever appears, because this is what we are in essence, that is consciousness. Because look at whatever you see, it just appears to your vision. Whatever you hear, it's heard spontaneously. And it's only after a few, moments that you're going to compare with your mind. And this is where we start not living fully. Awakening is life raw raw life. That's awakening. No filters.